Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 30 of Let's Kung Fu. Hard to believe that we've done 30 of these things. All of them terrible, except for the ones with the fine After Hours Gaming League folks, and of course the ones with Tristan, because Tristan is just awesome. This week is actually going to be yet another AHGL interview, but it's going to be with me instead of me interviewing other people. Emily, who I interviewed second, I want to say, is going to help out and ask me questions so that I don't just have to ask them to myself, because that would be a little bit weird. Before we jump into that, a couple of quick housekeeping things. Not going to MLG Dallas as I had originally planned. I'm just not. There's too many birthdays and Christmas and anniversaries and such things. So I'm going to skip that one, but I will definitely go on to the next one. Yes, MLG Dallas is in fact going on right now while I'm pre-recording this, but it's not. This is not being broadcast live, Emily. I know you're trying to save me. So admittedly, I guess by the time this did go out live, MLG Dallas would have been over, so it would have been obvious that I didn't go. Just bring up another point. This is one of the few episodes of the show that is pre-recorded, purely for the sake of people's availabilities. It's not something I do a whole lot, but I figure you guys don't mind. No one's actually ever watching live anyway, so what's the difference for all of you? So you guys can't see this, but I'm watching Emily on my monitor here, who is laughing pretty hard at me, which makes it very hard to concentrate, so I'm going to hide her for a minute. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all of the housekeeping. We are going to have one more AHGL interview with Brian, who does a lot of our web stuff. I'm going to talk to him next week, which will be on the... I honestly don't even know what date that's going to be. I'll look. That will be the 14th. Yes. See, this is the problem with pre-recording. You have no idea what date is what. And most importantly, when it comes time for the next episode, I will officially be an old man. I will be 30 by the time the next episode airs. It's a frightening thing. Emily is trying to convince me to re-record this intro, but no, I refuse, because the laughter is hilarious and awesome, and we're going to just stick with it and keep rolling. Even though, since every time she messages me, you can all hear the Skype message beep. It's fine. We don't do do-overs. That's for professionals. That said, we are going to go ahead and jump into the interview.
All right. Hi. Oh man.
Oh, no, see, I feel like that went really well, actually. Like it's kind of a train wreck, but it's a funny train wreck, so I'm okay with it.
All right. Hi again. I'm Emily. I'm the one who, yes, got interviewed second, and Damen gave me a lot of shout outs, and so now I'm returning the favor. I am asking the questions and just being a moderator, so we can jump right in, although I'm sure everyone actually already knows this, but you know, what's your name? What's your occupation? Just tell me about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Damen Knight. I am an internal tools engineer for a software company called Palantir Technologies. I'm not going to even try to get into explaining what an internal tools engineer does, because I've been doing it for about 5 months now, and I'm still not entirely sure. So we're just going to move right on past that. But I also obviously host the Let's Kung Fu web series. I am on the board of directors for a nonprofit makerspace, and I occasionally executive produce short films for fun, and I was going to say profit, but no, it's just a giant hole that money goes into.
Fair enough. Like, what kind of shorts have you done?
A bunch of different ones. I mean, honestly, for the most part, I'm mostly just the money. I go, hey, that's a cool project. I should help finance it. But I've done. There was one Sacrifice, which was like a World War II period piece short. I did one called Arella, which is a sci-fi fantasy futuristic thing that's pretty awesome and just came out fairly recently. All kinds of things. I think I actually just got a special thanks for a zombie movie.
I see. All right. So, how long have you been interested in esports?
For a long time. Before I really was aware of esports, to be honest. I played StarCraft 1 back in the day, and even before that, I was a really big Civilization player, like the original Civilization. And
Original Civ?
yeah, original Civ. I
Oh
actually
man.
I still play original Civ, but I found out, I was a kid at the time, but like I found out there were like world championships for Civilization and all these cool things, and I really wanted to be involved, but I wasn't aware of like esports as a concept. Like I knew that there were tournaments for things, but just esports itself wasn't a thing in my mind. So I've kind of been into it most of my life at this point. I just didn't know it. I didn't really become aware of esports as a thing until Brood War.
Gotcha. And I know also that you organized LAN events for Palantir, so if you want to talk about that at all.
Sure. Yeah, we've run three King of Palantir tournaments. I stole the name shamelessly from Day Nine's King of the Beta. Uh, we had our first one a few months after the King of the Beta tournament. Uh, Honestly, like the first one was just this tiny little thing. There were maybe 13 people in it, all Palantir employees who played. Like I had special T-shirts made up, and it was really fun. Everybody had a great time. And so they were like, Damon, let's do this up. Let's make this big. Let's make this awesome. So the next year, for our second one, we had it wide open. Anybody could play, but it was still a LAN event held at our headquarters in Palo Alto, and we managed to twist some arms and threaten some people, and Spanishiwa showed up and co-commentated and played a show match, and of course Sean Day 9 himself came and commentated the whole event live, and that was amazing and almost killed me. The single most stressful day of my entire life.
Because he was commentating, or because you had to run it,
Putting on
or
the event. It was a much bigger event. We went from like 12 players to an odd number of players. It was like 37 or something really bizarre like that. And I mean, I
why
had to.
37? Can't you restrict it, or like?
Well, I just wanted it to be like open, and we had a lot of like last minute cancellations and things like that. So
I see.
it wound up being really difficult to build brackets for that, and like figure out who got buys and who didn't get buys, and I was like doing all of this stuff by hand. And we wanted to stream it live, but there were all kinds of technical difficulties, and like the event itself didn't even start happening until 4 hours late. Because of all the technical issues, we only managed to stream it internally inside the company. Like we had to jury rig our video conferencing system in to like let all of the different offices watch it. Oh man, no, it was bad. That said, it was bad for me. Everyone had a great time. Everybody loved it. I swore up and down that I would never ever do another one, which of course leads us to this year where I did another one. It was greatly simplified in comparison. It was only open to Palantir employees and Facebook employees. We have a kind of a friendly rivalry going on in Palo Alto. And, no outside commentators. I actually commentated along with some of the guys from Facebook and some other Palantir employees, whoever was available. And as I said, it was a lot more low-key. We actually did broadcast this one live over the internet, but we did all of the AV work in-house, and everything went just a million times smoother, and was actually a really good event, so we're actually probably going to try to go bigger again. Like, we scaled back a little bit this year, but we're going to try to probably scale up a little bit again for next year. And yeah, other than Facebook bringing an intern who was the Grandmaster player Spencer, and then crushing everyone, it was a really good event.
Gotcha. So what you're telling me is that you now have dreams to be a commentator.
I would love to be a commentator. The problem is, it requires either you to be really, really funny and on pretty much all the time. And I think I'm pretty funny, but I'm not that funny. Or you just have to have, like, really super encyclopedic knowledge of StarCraft and what's going on. Because you need to make sure that you know, like, about maps or units or builds and things like that, because you always have to have something to talk about. Because there's large periods of games where there's nothing happening, and you can't just have dead air. And I haven't worked that one out yet, so I'm probably going to leave the commentating to, the Day 9s and the Huskies and the Tastosises, but I'll probably keep doing it for, internal events and fun things like that, because I can only embarrass myself so much.
Gotcha. All right. Other fun questions is, what's your favorite video game and why? And maybe I should disclose StarCraft 2.
Yeah, so obviously, excluding StarCraft, totally have to go with the original Civilization. I know I mentioned it before. It was one of the very first video games I ever played, back in, I'm going to say, 1990. And I got super, super into it and super addicted, and I actually got to the point where I beat that game as every single different country on every single different difficulty level.
Oh my gosh.
So I feel like I beat that on every possible permutation.
And you haven't done this with any other civilization, just Civ 1.
Just Civ 1, none of the others were as good.
What made Civ 1 so much better? I think most people would say, like, oh, Civ 2, or, I know there's a huge fan following for Civ 4.
So, I mean, I liked the other Civ games. I played them. They lost some of the elegance of the first one. They went to that weird hex movement instead of the standard grid, and they started just really going into, like, super micro detail of things, and it just got complicated enough where it wasn't as much fun. It just wasn't as simple anymore. The pure joy of it was replaced by basically being an accountant and managing a really big spreadsheet. It was a lot like EVE Online.
Okay. I have never played EVE Online, so I would not be able to...
EVE Online is frequently described as a giant spreadsheet simulator in space.
I'll take your word for it. All right, so how about, what's your favorite video game-related story? Any personal experiences you have?
So I've got two of them. Number one, this is not in any specific order, but I'm just going to call this one number one, was actually at MLG Rally this year. It was my second championship that I'd gone to and participated in the open brackets, and when I went to Anaheim earlier in the year, there was a bunch of people from Palantir there. I went and actually roomed with NATO. So, like, I knew people, I had folks to hang out with, and that was awesome. And at Rally, that's actually out close to where I live, sort of, but there's... It was like a 6-hour drive each way, but whatever, it's close.
Close.
But I was the only one that I knew. Like, I didn't know anybody else there at all. And on day 2... I was, there early, hanging out, and, watching the commentary that was going on for the early games, and Sean came out, Day 9 came out, and completely didn't see me, and I was, like, right up front, and he was, like, just coming out to hang out with people and be friendly and socialize, and I kind of turned around, and I went, "Hey, Sean." And he, like, jumped up and ran over and just gave me this giant bear hug. He was like, "Damen!" And so that just 100% made my MLG weekend. Because I'm like, yeah, the whole rest of the day, people are like, you know day 9? I'm like, yeah. That's right.
It's like, yeah, that's right, I do.
I'm like, oh yeah, we go way back. Way back. So that was the most recent one. And the older story is back from StarCraft 1 days, Brood War days. Being the uber nerd that I am, I was the captain of or president, I suppose, of my high school's video game club. Because we had a video game club. We had this entire computer lab. It was pretty awesome, and it had removable hard drives. And Video Game Club had their own set of removable drives for each of the computers, with like StarCraft and Alien vs. Predator and America's Army and all these great games installed. And every Wednesday, I went to private school, boarding school. We had class 6 days a week.
Okay.
So Wednesdays were kind of half days, so there was a period of time where we were all at school, but didn't have classes, and so we would all go into the tech lab and do the video game club. And since I was the president, I twisted arms a lot to make StarCraft the game played as much as humanly possible. And I was the best in the school. And when I say that, what I mean is I was the best in the school in video game club. There was this South Korean kid who was just totally unfair and face stomp everybody, but thankfully he wasn't in video game club. But what would happen is we would actually do, big game hunters, because everybody did big game hunters, and we would do 7-on-1 games.
7-on-1?
Yeah, where I was the one.
Okay.
I was the one, and I actually made it through my entire high school career never being defeated in any of the 7-on-1 games, doing nothing but building carriers and photon cannons.
I see.
Because StarCraft Brood War was really, really broken, especially on big game hunters.
Well, yes, on VGH where you never have to expand, you just stay put.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic. And honestly, they still could have beaten me, but it was I had built up this mystique over the years, so everyone else in the club was petrified to attack me. So I could just sit there and build up this gigantic death army all game long. And to just pick everybody off one at a time. Because
so basically because they never rushed you.
Oh yeah, they were all, it was hilarious. All they ever had to do was like all probe rush me once and I would have been screwed.
I see.
That's possibly my very favorite video game story, just because it was hilarious. It goes to show that mind games are an important part of esports.
I think I still like my StarCraft story better. Oh gosh. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can watch my video.
yeah, go watch her episode. We want her to break I want her to be my first episode to break 200 views.
Okay, so who is your favorite figure in the esports community? I think I know the answer.
So yeah, I'm actually, once again, I'm going to give more than one answer to this, because number one is obviously Day 9. And, excluding him, or at least moving outside of casters, number 2 is probably Huck. I'm a giant Huck fan. Really for 2 reasons. He's sort of an American. I'm gonna go with he's a foreigner, but he's sort of an American. American, Canadian, whatever, it's all the same thing. And he's a Protoss player. And his mothership antics at MLG, like it with everyone else, won my heart.
Gotcha. Were you actually there at that MLG?
I was not. I'm very disappointed. It was just before I really got into the whole tournament scene.
Gotcha. But it was still Halo. Okay, so entering into the AHGL questions is so how did you first hear about the AHGL?
So through the Day 9 Daily, really. Season 1, when he kind of announced that it was a thing and that it was happening. And I was very upset that Palantir was not a part of it, honestly. Because of our connection with Tristan being Day 9's buddy and all. I was just like, dude, how did we not get this invite? Felt a little bit left out, but I immediately started emailing people because I had already been talking to them about, or I had talked to them from the King of Palantir tournament stuff. because actually it was funny, the King of Palantir tournament that Day 9 cast was actually the day after the AHGL Season 1 finals, and NATO wound up coming by and actually playing.
I see. How far did you get?
Uh, so that's kind of a painful story.
Uh-oh.
It's a very sore spot with him.
Uh-oh.
So
Are we gonna
remember how
now?
I told you no. So remember how I told you what a mess that was.
Right.
I forgot to have a game to determine third place.
I see.
Like we had trophies for first, second, and third, but I didn't have a game. You know, we had the semifinals and the finals, but then nothing to determine who was the third place player. And Tristan and NATO were both in the semifinals and lost in the semifinals, and so I'm going, oh crap, who's our third place finalist? And just because we didn't have time to last minute throw in an extra, best of 3 or best of 5 for them, I wound up just going based on who lost fewer games throughout the entire tournament. And Tristan lost 1 fewer game than NATO did. So Tristan wound up with third place and NATO with fourth, and he has never let me live that down.
I see. So lesson learned, always schedule in the third place match, especially if there's going to be a prize associated with third place.
Yes, I did learn that lesson, and I did not repeat that mistake in this year's tournament.
Good to hear. So why did you decide to get involved with AHGL?
Because anything that I could do that can make my company support me playing video games is a good thing.
That's a fair enough statement. Definitely appreciate the fact that I get to work in Xbox and there's a natural appreciation for games there. So I see you're just simply expanding that influence.
Honestly, my goal in life is to get Palantir so involved in esports that someday my job at Palantir will just be esports.
That's a good goal. What's your favorite part about working with the AHGL?
Honestly, it's the opportunity to make a tournament like this happen. I really enjoyed, depending on which particular tournament we're talking about, the King of Palantir tournaments. They were, generally speaking, fun to put on, and it's great to, throw an event and put something together that so many people can be involved with. And doing it at Palantir is great, but we're a lot more limited in scope. Being able to do that with the AHGL, where we can interact with so many different companies and really just show so many more people, what esports is and what it's all about, and kind of pulling them in and getting them involved is just absolutely fantastic.
Very true statements. So what has been the biggest challenge so far with getting Season 3 going?
Other than occasionally wanting to murder people, just...
Hopefully not me.
No, I don't think I've wanted to murder you yet. Give it time.
Oh, no.
But I mean, it's really hard, because there's, 5 or 6 of us trying to run this, and we all have very different ways of doing things, and occasionally you can get a little bit caught up in, just arguing about whose way is best, instead of actually moving things forward and getting things done. But thankfully, we have, for the most part, gotten past that and are making good progress these days.
And what do friends, family, significant others, etc. think about, everything that you've been doing for AHGL?
So my wife is super, super supportive. She is really into roller derby. And so she kind of understands having that weird esoteric hobby that no one else gets. I mean, my family, for the most part, has no clue what in the world any of it is. They're very technical, but none of them are gamers. So, as I said, they're all kind of confused by it. And most of my friends are like car people and things like that, and so just aren't even gamers. They really have no concept. Really, only my StarCraft friends get it. A couple of coworkers and you guys, honestly. So all the people that I'm friends with who even understand what the AHGL is are already part of it.
Gotcha. Well, is there anything that you particularly care about that you would think, oh, I really would love to see this in a future AHGL season?
So it's funny because I've asked everyone this question and everybody's kind of, hemmed and hawed and said, or they didn't really have an answer. And I also don't really have an answer, but that's okay because I'm good at thinking them up on the spot. So what I would really like to see in the AHGL is... Man, I had something and it went away. I know. So right now the way everything's set up is, we have the standard, like, MLG GSL style thing where it's, best of series and all the games are pretty straightforward and ordinary. I would really like to see more integration of the crazy, free-for-all wildcard games and things like that. They're goofy and exciting to watch and a lot of fun. And while I love the serious competition games, occasionally just seeing insane things happen is a lot of fun. And we got to see that with the one free-for-all game last season, but I'm hoping that in the future we can find more and more excuses to, just do weird stuff like that.
Fair enough. Hey, actually, I realized after our interview that I was like, oh, I should have mentioned the fact that I always wanted a top 5 play program. Like, submit your plays, and then, it's like people can vote and say, oh, I think this was like the best plays, and then our recaps are going to be things like top 5 play program.
There you go.
I only can hope for the video editors that would need.
We'll get there.
Eventually. So do you have any special predictions for Season 3?
Absolutely. Palantir A-Team, complete sweep. We're just going to win everything.
Really?
Yeah, so we have a new strategy. You've all heard the saying, when behind Dark Shrine that was coined for Tristan for Mantra. I've decided that that's great, but we just need to take it to its logical conclusion and just only build Dark Templar. 100% of the time.
I think you just gave away your strategy, though.
But I feel like it's foolproof. I feel like we just can't lose with it. It's just that.
But you just gave away your strategy. You've set Tristan up for failure now.
But it doesn't matter. It's just going to win, no matter what. Unless the other team also just goes DTs, in which case that would just be hilarious.
Base race.
There you go.
And finally, why should people tune in to watch this upcoming AHGL season?
Because I've put a lot of work into it, and I will cry and be very sad if you don't. No, honestly...
You don't want to make Damen cry.
Well, you don't want to make me cry. It's not a pretty sight. But, honestly, I feel like there's a lot of exciting things coming. This season may not feel like that big of a change from last season, but, we have the introduction of the B-Leagues, which is going to be really, really cool. We have the So You Think You Can Cast competition. We may have other stuff coming up later on that we'll announce if it pans out. And, it's being run by a bunch of volunteers who are just really, really passionate about everything that's going on. So... And if you have any interest in esports at all, it just seems like a no-brainer that it's the thing to watch. And if you're just getting into it and you want to get into esports and learn about the games, the fact that they're not super-duper high-level players, I honestly feel like will make it a little bit more accessible, and you'll be able to look at it and go, hey, you know what? This person doesn't have 300 APM. I can do what they're doing. So I feel like, it's worth checking out.
Well, that's all the questions that are on the table. So I can sign off now, and you can have your closing statements as you like.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Yep, no problem.
All right, guys. So yeah, that was my wonderful and amazing interview I'm sure you all love me even more than you did before, right? Big thanks to Emily for putting up with me, and putting up with me twice, which is a lot for anybody. And yeah, it was a good interview, good questions asked. A couple of unexpected ones that were not on my sheet, which is cheating. And yeah, I don't feel like there's a whole lot else to say here tonight. Next week, again, will be another interview that I will be giving with Brian. And we did not hit my goal of 50 Facebook likes for the Let's Kung Fu Facebook page. I'm very disappointed in all of you who didn't like it. I would tell your mother if I had any way to reach her or knew who she was. But that would be creepy, so I don't. You should go ahead and like the page, though. If we do get to 50 likes anytime soon, I will do a special episode where we look at the Heart of the Swarm beta, and you can watch me fail really, really hard at it, because that is what has been happening pretty much 100% of the games that I've been playing. You heard it here first. Widow Mines are overpowered, and Terran needs a nerf. I feel like that's everything, though. So I will sign off, and I will see all of you next week, right after you enjoy my super awesome